New at noon, a trial date has been scheduled for the security guard accused of raping and killing a woman at a downtown Orlando apartment complex. Today, a judge set Stephen Duxbury's trial for November 13th. Duxbury is charged with first-degree murder after prosecutors say he killed 27-year-old Sasha Samsudeen at the Uptown Place Apartments in 2015. He worked at the complex and allegedly overrode an electronic lock to get inside her apartment.
Look, I'm gonna tell you about Sasha Samsudeen real quick. Young, black, doing her thing in Orlando. Good job, nice apartment, living her life. October 2015, she goes out with her girls, has a few drinks, heads home. Next day, she's gone, murdered in her own apartment. And the person who killed her? The security guard. The one dude who was supposed to protect everybody in that building. This is how it happened. So, let's back up and get to know Sasha first, because you need to understand who she was before all this went down. Sasha grew up in Central Florida, right? Smart girl, went to University of Florida, graduated, and landed herself a position in Orlando working for Pearson. That's an education company. Started off as their social media manager. Now, Sasha wasn't just sitting around collecting checks. Nah, she was moving up. Ended up getting promoted to director of operations. Her coworkers, they said she was hardworking, real dedicated to what she did. But here's the thing that got me tight. Some people underestimated her skills just because of how she looked. Like, really? We're still doing that? Judging somebody's capabilities based on their appearance? But that's the world we live in, man. People see a young woman who looks a certain way and automatically think she can't be about her business. Sasha proved them wrong, though. She had her own spot in this upscale apartment building on North Orange Avenue. Nice neighborhood, real uptown area. And when I say this building had security, I mean it had everything. Gym, swimming pool, digital locks on every single apartment door. You needed a specific code to get in. Surveillance cameras on every corner of every floor. And a night guard on duty. Sasha picked this place specifically because she wanted to feel safe coming home after long days at work. You feel me? She wanted somewhere she could just breathe, sleep good, not worry about nothing. That's all she wanted. A safe place to rest her head. Friday evening, October 16th. Sasha decided to go out with her friends, have some drinks, enjoy herself. They ended up at the Attic nightclub. Nothing crazy, just young people doing what young people do on a Friday night. Around 12:30 in the morning, Sasha left the club. Now, her friends said this was normal for them. Sometimes they'd leave separately, hit up other bars, do their own thing. So they said their goodbyes, and that was it. Nobody thought twice about it. Except that was the last time they ever saw her alive. Next morning, Sasha was supposed to meet up with her friend Anthony for breakfast. She didn't show. Anthony's calling her phone, texting her, nothing, no response. He's thinking, okay, maybe she had too much to drink last night, can't wake up, whatever. He reached out to some other friends, told them what's up. They're all like, yeah, she probably just overdid it with the drinks. They weren't really pressed about it yet. But Sasha had another commitment that day too. One of her friends was having a baby shower, and Sasha was supposed to be there. Party started up, and guess what? Still no Sasha. Now her friends are really starting to worry. Like, okay, missing breakfast is one thing, but a baby shower? Nah, something ain't right. So they decided to pull up to her apartment and check on her themselves. When they got there, they knocked on the door. No answer. But here's what got them. Sasha's car was right there in the parking lot. And when they looked inside, the gift she bought for the baby shower was sitting on the back seat, already wrapped up and everything. That's when they knew something was really wrong. They called the police. Officers showed up and got the apartment management to open that door by force. When the police stepped inside, everything looked normal. Too normal. The whole apartment was clean. Kitchen looked fine. Living room was neat. Nothing seemed out of place. They walked toward the bedroom, and same thing. Bedroom looked clean. Nothing obviously wrong. But then, one of the officers noticed something. The blanket on the bed was rolled up in a weird way. Didn't look natural. And there were long strands of hair on the bed sheet. He moved closer to get a better look at that blanket. And that's when he saw it. An arm hanging out from inside the blanket. It was Sasha. Her body was wrapped up inside her own comforter. The officer could see right away that she'd fought back. There were clear signs of a struggle, signs of sexual assault too. Near her body, police found a packet of condoms just laying there, and the smell in that apartment? Chemical cleaners. Somebody had scrubbed down the whole place trying to destroy any DNA evidence they left behind. But see, whoever did this wasn't as smart as they thought they were, because they left evidence. A size 9 shoe print near the body. 2 clear thumbprints on the toilet seat. And DNA. DNA on Sasha's chest that the chemicals didn't wash away. The police walked back out of that apartment, and the look on their faces told Sasha's friends everything they needed to know. Their friend was gone. Now comes the part where we figure out who did this, 'cause justice needed to be served. First thing investigators did, they pulled all the security footage. And like I said, this building had cameras everywhere. Hallways, exits, every floor. They also grabbed footage from the street cameras outside. See, to get home, Sasha would have had to walk about 10 blocks down Orange Avenue, which is the main strip in downtown Orlando. Cameras everywhere. They started by talking to the security guard who was on duty the night Sasha died. His name was Stephen Duxbury. He told investigators he saw Sasha that night because she was trying to get into the building. Said she didn't have her cell phone or her key fob, and she couldn't remember her entry code to get in the door. He claimed she was really intoxicated, stumbling around and whatnot. Said she asked him to walk her out to her car to see if her stuff was in there. He told him they walked out to the parking garage together. But then she remembered her code, tried it, but it still didn't work. He said he had to get back to his post, but he figured she must have gotten in behind some other residents because he didn't see her again after that. That was his story. We'll come back to that. Investigators started going through all that camera footage from downtown Orlando, starting at the Attic nightclub where Sasha and her friends had been. The footage shows Sasha walking out of the club, and man, you can see she was drunk, stumbling, trying to keep her balance, walking alone. Then the video cuts out, some kind of glitch in the system. 6 seconds of nothing. When the footage comes back on, Sasha's not alone anymore. She's standing there with 2 other women. Now, Sasha's friends didn't recognize these women at all. They had no idea who they were. The police put out images of these 2 women, hoping they'd come forward, and they did. Both women showed up to talk to investigators and explain the whole situation. They said when they spotted Sasha outside the club, she was in bad shape, real drunk, barely holding it together. And she was about to get into a car with like 4 or 5 dudes. These women saw that and said, "Nah, we can't let this happen." So they stepped in and offered to help her. That's women looking out for women, you know what I'm saying? Making sure one of their own gets home safe. They said Sasha didn't have her ID or her phone on her, so they offered to share their Uber and make sure she got to her building. Once they pulled up to Sasha's apartment complex and she saw where she was, she jumped out the car real quick. The women figured, okay, she's at her building now. She's safe. We did our part, so they left. They had no idea what was about to happen to her. So now let's follow Sasha's path that night through all these security cameras, 'cause this is where the timeline gets real important. The footage picks up at 1:46 in the morning. Sasha's at her apartment building trying to get inside. Another man walks up. Turns out he's just a concerned resident who lives there. He asks her if she's okay. She tells him yes. He goes on about his business, and investigators confirmed later he had nothing to do with this. He's not seen again on any of the tapes after that. But here's where things get strange. At 2:06 a.m., Sasha shows up on camera again. And this time, she's running, not walking, running through the hallways. And if you listen to the audio from the footage, you can hear her shoes making these loud, abnormal noises against the floor, like she's in a hurry, like something's got her spooked. Then, at 2:25 a.m., the cameras catch her one more time. But now she's not alone. The security guard, Stephen Duxbury, is right there with her. They're walking together, going to and from the parking garage, just like he told the police in his statement. So at this point, his story is checking out. Everything he said matches what the cameras are showing. For now, investigators are thinking, okay, maybe we can rule him out, but hold up, we're not done yet. Now, most of these domestic violence and murder cases, they come down to jealousy, passion, somebody who couldn't let go. So, investigators did what they always do. They started looking at ex-boyfriends. Sasha's friends told police she'd been in 2 relationships over the past few years. One ex was named Taylor, the other was Ben. They needed to check both of them out. Ben was especially interesting because, here's the thing, Sasha had texted him just a few minutes before she died. At 5:12 in the morning, she sent him a message that just said his name. Ben. That's it. He didn't respond for another 16 minutes. When investigators talked to Ben, he explained that he and Sasha had dated briefly, and they were supposed to hang out that weekend, but it didn't work out. He said the last time they texted back and forth was around 1 in the morning. She told him, "Come to Sidebar now," and he said, "Come hang out where he was." He was at a friend's house. She asked, "Where?" Then later she sent, "Ben," and he replied, "Sasha, you okay?" She said, "Yes, of course." That was around 1 o'clock. He told her, "Okay, we should come hang out whenever you're ready." And that was the last he heard from her until that text at 5:12 a.m. that just said his name. When investigators asked if he still had feelings for Sasha, Ben admitted he had this deep feeling that maybe one day they'd get back together. But here's the thing, they took his DNA sample, ran it against the evidence from the crime scene, and it wasn't a match. Ben was cleared. Next up was Taylor, her other ex. He was a bartender. When they questioned him about where he was that night, he said he worked his shift at the bar and got home around 1 in the morning, then went to sleep. He let them take a DNA sample too, no problem. Results came back, and just like Ben, he wasn't a match either. Taylor was ruled out. So now investigators are sitting there like, okay, who did this? Because so far, nobody's matching up. After digging deeper into everything, going through all the evidence again and again, investigators realized they were left with only one real suspect, Stephen Duxbury, the security guard. And once they started looking closer at him, things started falling apart real quick. Remember how he told investigators he left work at 6 a.m.? Well, the surveillance footage told a different story. At 6:36 in the morning, cameras caught him still inside the building, and he's carrying 2 garbage bags, white bags with red handles. Now I need y'all to remember those details. White garbage bags, red handles. Keep that in your mind. First of all, why is a security guard carrying out trash? That's not his job. That's not what he's there for. But there he is on camera, walking out with these bags like it's nothing. Investigators asked Stephen to take a polygraph test. That's the lie detector test, for anybody who doesn't know. And man, when they hooked him up to that machine, the needle jumped on two specific questions. They asked him if he'd been inside Sasha's apartment. The needle jumped. They asked him if Sasha was strangled. The needle jumped again. But Stephen stuck to his story. He swore up and down he never went inside Sasha's apartment. He tried to paint himself as this super professional security guard who never crossed boundaries. He even told investigators this whole story about how a woman once tried to manipulate him sexually to get him to come into her apartment, but he refused because that's not what he does. He insisted that everything he told them before was the truth. He was just trying to help Sasha get into her building that night, and that was it. But investigators had a big question. If Stephen never went inside Sasha's apartment like he claimed, then how did the killer get in? Because remember, these apartments had digital locks. You needed a specific code to unlock each door. It's not like you could just kick it in or pick the lock. So they started digging into Stephen's background, checking his computer, his search history. And guess what they found? Stephen had been on Google searching for ways to bypass those apartment codes. He'd been trying different codes, different combinations, until he figured out how to get access. And he was successful. He got into Sasha's apartment. Remember those white garbage bags with red handles that Stephen was carrying out of the building at 6:36 a.m.? The ones that made no sense for a security guard to be handling? Investigators confirmed that those bags were the exact same type of garbage bag Sasha used in her apartment. The exact same ones. They asked Stephen if he had any kind of criminal history, if he'd ever been arrested or spent time in jail. He said yes, but then tried to explain it away with some story about how he was arrested instead of someone else and later got released without any charges. At this point, I'm sitting here thinking, how did this man even get hired as a security guard? Like, did nobody do a proper background check? Did nobody get a bad feeling about this dude? Turns out they should have. Because when investigators started talking to the female residents of that building, they heard some disturbing things. Multiple women had complained about Stephen Duxbury. He'd harassed them. He'd followed them. He made them feel uncomfortable and unsafe, and nobody did anything about it. No action was ever taken. The man who was supposed to protect these women was the same man making them feel threatened in their own building. So, at this point, Stephen Duxbury was the #1 suspect. Everything was pointing at him, but investigators needed solid evidence to make sure this case was airtight. That polygraph test he took, the results showed he was only 3% truthful in all his answers. 3%. That means 97% of what came out of his mouth was lies. But they needed more than a failed polygraph. They needed physical evidence. Lead #1, the shoe print. Remember that size 9 shoe print they found on the floor of Sasha's apartment? Investigators searched Stephen's place and found a pair of sneakers. Size 9. They compared the print and it was an exact match. Lead #2, the fingerprints. Those 2 clear thumbprints they found on Sasha's toilet seat, they ran them through the system. Match. Stephen Duxbury's right thumb. Lead #3, the DNA. This is the one that sealed it. The DNA found on Sasha's chest, it belonged to Stephen Duxbury. And one more thing, Stephen had visible injuries on his arms, fresh marks, scratches, signs of trauma. He tried to tell police he had some kind of medical condition that caused them, but investigators knew better. Those were defensive wounds. Sasha had fought back. She'd bitten him, scratched him, tried everything she could to get away. It was the security guard, the person whose entire job was to keep residents safe, the person everyone trusted. He'd strangled Sasha, he'd raped her, he'd killed her in her own apartment, the place she'd chosen specifically because she wanted to feel protected. Stephen Duxbury was arrested and charged with first-degree murder, attempted sexual battery with physical force, and burglary of a dwelling with assault and battery. All the lies were done. The evidence didn't lie, even if he did. In November 2017, Stephen Duxbury stood in front of a judge at the Orange County Courthouse. He was sentenced to 2 life sentences, one for first-degree murder, one for rape, plus an additional 15 years for burglary, 2 life sentences. He's never getting out. He's gonna spend the rest of his days in prison for what he did to Sasha. But before the judge handed down that sentence, Sasha's parents had something to say. Her mother, Sasha Samsudeen, stood up in that courtroom and told the judge she had to quit her job. She was an emergency room nurse, but after what happened to her daughter, she couldn't treat rape victims anymore, couldn't do it. Every time she tried, all she could see was Sasha. All she could think about was what her daughter went through in those final moments. She told the court she'll never have one last dinner with her daughter, never get to sit across the table from her again, talk about life, laugh about nothing. Her father won't ever get to walk Sasha down the aisle. Every wedding Tara goes to now, every single one, she thinks about Sasha, thinks about the wedding her daughter will never have, the life she'll never get to live. But Tara also made sure to thank the investigators and the police department, thanked them for not giving up, for fighting to get justice for her daughter. Because without them putting in that work, Stephen Duxbury might have walked free. And she wanted everyone to know that Sasha will always be remembered, not just for how she died, but for who she was, a smart, hardworking woman who had her whole life ahead of her. Look, this case hits different because of how it went down. Sasha did everything right. She went out with her friends, had a good time, and when she got too drunk, 2 complete strangers made sure she got home safe. Those women didn't have to do that. They could have kept it moving, minded their business, but they didn't. They saw a young woman in danger and they helped her. Sasha made it to her building, made it through the front door, made it to the place she paid good money for, specifically because it was supposed to be secure. She was home. She should have been safe. But the person who violated her, who took her life, was the one man in that entire building whose job was to protect her. Stephen Duxbury had access to everything, the security codes, the cameras, every apartment in that complex, and he used that access to prey on a vulnerable woman. He saw Sasha that night, drunk and struggling to get inside, and instead of doing his job, instead of helping her get to her apartment and leaving her alone, he saw an opportunity. He thought he could take advantage of her and get away with it because he was the security guard, because who would suspect him? He thought scrubbing down her apartment with chemicals would erase the evidence. He thought carrying out those garbage bags in the morning would go unnoticed. He thought he was smart enough to cover his tracks. But he wasn't. The shoe print he left behind, the thumbprints on the toilet seat, the DNA on Sasha's body, the scratches and bite marks on his arms from where she fought back, the surveillance footage that caught him in his lies. All of it came together to prove what he did, and thank God it did, because if Stephen Duxbury had gotten away with killing Sasha, he would have done it again. Men like that don't stop. The fact that multiple women in that building had already complained about him harassing them and following them, and nothing was done about it, that should tell you everything. The warning signs were there. People just didn't take them seriously until it was too late. Sasha Samsudeen was 27 years old. She was building a career, living her life, going out with friends on a Friday night like millions of other young people do. She wasn't doing anything wrong. She wasn't putting herself in danger. She made it home. And she was murdered by the person who was supposed to keep her safe. To Sasha's family, her friends, everyone who loved her, I'm sorry for your loss. I'm sorry this happened. I'm sorry that the system failed her, that complaints about Stephen Duxbury were ignored, that he was allowed to keep that job even after women said they didn't feel safe around him. But I'm glad he's locked up now. I'm glad the investigators did their job and made sure he'll never hurt anyone else. I'm glad Sasha's family got justice, even though no amount of justice will ever bring her back. This is the reality of domestic violence and relationship crimes. Sometimes it's a partner, an ex, somebody you used to love. But sometimes, like in Sasha's case, it's someone who abused a position of trust and power. Someone who saw a woman alone and vulnerable and decided to become a predator. We gotta do better. We gotta listen when women say they don't feel safe. We gotta take those complaints seriously before it's too late. And we gotta look out for each other, the way those two women looked out for Sasha that night outside the club. Sasha Samsudeen deserved better. She deserved to wake up that Saturday morning, meet her friend for breakfast, go to that baby shower, and live the rest of her life. Rest in peace, Sasha. Your story won't be forgotten.